Hello, hello, hello. Hi, you guys. Happy Independence Day. For those of you who are watching me for the very first time, I want to welcome you guys and let you know that, you know what, if you go back and you watch a couple of my videos prior to this one, I do have a different type of intro song. But you know what? I figured, okay, let me have some level of variation because my outro is the same as the intro, blah, blah, blah. So I decided to switch it up a little bit. And then I'm really excited about it because, like, I am, for those of you who know me, you know, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing when it comes to editing and all that good stuff. But I want to say I have an amazing producer that helps me put this content together and topics together and make sure that this show is very interactional and things like that. So I'm excited. Welcome to Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson. I am Dr. Jefferson, and this channel is primarily about accountability conversations around accountability when it comes to topics and situations that affects the Black and the Brown community and those other people who are of melanated descent. This particular show is an expansion from an intro I kind of gave you guys a couple of days ago about Black history yesterday. So we talked about that. There are a lot of Black people who are like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm not celebrating Independence Day for white American colonists who came over here and decided to snatch our slaves out of their beds, unbeknownst to themselves, right? And then force them into slavery to build this world that they live in today. And they're just so proud of their independence, blah, blah, blah. Well, the reality is the Declaration of Independence is a whole separate entity from the establishments of the initial colonies, believe it or not. And the Declaration of Independence, it kind of goes to account for lots of free people, slaves, previous slaves included. So I was able to find this article because this article includes my absolute favorite person in history when it comes to wars. And I gave you guys a little bit of information about him on that intro as well. And he's going to be included in this article. But so I'm going to talk about this 7 Black heroes of the American Revolution. And I'd love to hear you guys' insights, okay? So as I navigate through this topic today, feel free to jump in the chat and talk about what you will, how you will, if you will. All right. So, 7 Black heroes of the American Revolution. Right. They include a spy, and I thought that he was really, really cool. A poet, and this poet, oh my God, when you guys hear her backstory, I'm pretty sure I know exactly who they're talking about. I haven't read this article yet, by the way, but just based off of the intro, I already know who the spy was because, like, I know so much about history. Like, it probably, I could put you guys to sleep, wake up, sleep again with history. Not only about American history, but pretty much about the world's history. I've always been quite the historian, quite the bookworm or whatever. But anyway, I feel like, sometimes some people are into discovery and learning things and some folks aren't. So the spy, I'm sure, was the double agent, and I can't wait to talk about that. That was interesting because that, to be honest with you, is what ended the war and what led to so many slaves being free, truly free. I know you guys are probably going to hear my kids and the noise and stuff in the background, but they're just celebrating Independence Day. Okay. And a guerrilla fighter, a foot soldier who fought on both sides of the war. Okay. So let's take a look at some of these illustrations. I really like illustrations. Oh, wow. So let's read this. During the American Revolution, thousands of Black Americans jumped into the war on both sides of the conflict. And I'm sure you guys already knew that because Black people were just trying to see basically who's going to give me my freedom. Forget everything that you're talking about and everything you stand for. The Patriots, of course, they represented the northern states. And we're going to talk about what their army looked like. Okay. But unlike their white counterparts, they weren't just fighting for independence or to maintain British control in a time when the vast majority of African Americans lived in bondage. Their forced labor, fueling the economy on the fledgling nation, right? Most took up arms in hopes that they'd be freed from the literal shackles, okay, of slavery. In fact, when enslaved people had the choice in the matter, according to the historian Edward Ayers, and he's the one that provided the vast majority of history book information and things like that. If you guys have texts and things that you've read history from, typically they're from his accounts because he's like the historian in Yorktown. Um, of the American Revolution Museum in Yorktown, Virginia, they signed on whichever side seemed like most likely to grant them their personal freedom. For some slaves turned soldier, the revolution's promise of liberty became a reality. But despite the Patriots' lofty rhetoric about liberty and justice for all, America's war for independence didn't herald widespread emancipation for enslaved people of color. America's northern states didn't pass laws to abolish slavery until 1804, and even then, some areas phased it out very slowly because we know that back then nobody had a pager, cell phone, and those kinds of things, right? News travels slowly. Laws are implemented slower, even. So, Southern states clung on to the brutal practice of slavery for more than half a century longer. I think that we all know that. You know, some people didn't get freed from slavery, to be honest, until like the early 1900s. So even after 1865, some 40 some odd years later, some people were still enslaved. So it says historians estimate that between 5,000 and 8,000 African descended people participated in the revolution on the Patriot side, and that upward of 20,000 served the crown. Wow. Wow. Many fought with extraordinary bravery and skill, their exploits lost to our collective memory. Below are the stories of several exceptional African American figures, a martyr, a poet, and a double agent among them, whose crucial contributions to the conflict have been remembered in history by some, not all. So when I say that sometimes we got to know a little better, do a little better, and things like that, when Black people in this whole movement now have the idea that it's a good thing, a positive thing to remove all of these statues and things like that, I ask people, how much do you really know about your history and how much that defames your Black history makers? Okay. So Crispus Attucks. Oh my God. Really excited about this one. Whom many historians credit as the first man to die for the rebellion. He is literally the official first martyr of America. That's what they call this guy. He was amazing. Amazing. So, says he became a symbol of Black American patriotism and sacrifice in 1770 as tensions mounted between the British and colonial sailors in Massachusetts ports. Distrust and competition among them grew. These pressures came to a head on March 5th when an angry confrontation turned into a slaughter known as the Boston Massacre. Does everybody remember that? I'm sure you guys hear my alarm. Well, it's Bieber's alarm. So, witnesses say that Attucks, a middle-aged runaway enslaved man of Africa, of African and Native American descent, should I say? One sec, let me help them with this. Oh man, you guys, what are we doing? I guess technology is a little complex, right? So I'm sure you guys got a chance to kind of read a little bit of this. So I'll move forward. You guys don't need to know what he did, what his job was, making ropes and things like that. So of the 5 colonists killed, it said he was the first to fall, making him the first martyr of the American cause. He was taken down by 2 musket balls to the chest. Can you imagine? I mean, literally. So this is my guy, Salem Poor. Patriot soldier. Salem Poor began his life as a Massachusetts slave and ended it as an American hero. That says a million things right there. Born into bondage in the late 1740s, he purchased his own freedom 2 decades later for 27 pounds. Just in case you guys don't realize, that was a lot of money back, for them back then. 27 bucks is what that's equivalent to right now. But if we did a comparison of money, the value of money now and then, it would definitely be a few $1,000s, because it took them forever to save up money. You understand? So soon after, he joined the fight for independence. You guys hear that? Even after buying himself into his freedom, he decided to fight anyway. Come on, I'm going to need you guys to think about it, okay? Enlisting multiple times, he is believed to have fought in the battles of Saratoga and Monmouth, and I agree. I know that he's definitely documented as fighting in both of those, and of course the Battle of Bunker Hill, which was the most impressive. Okay, so where his contributions so impressed his fellow soldiers that after the war ended, 14 of them formally recognized his excellent battle skills with a petition to the General Court of Massachusetts. In it, they called him out as a brave and gallant soldier, saying he behaved like an experienced officer, which he did, because he was very good when it came to mapping out strategy in the war. Like, that was one of his main things. And they fought in the trenches back then. I'm not sure how much you guys know about war tactics or how many of you are ex-military, but listen. Okay. Poor is credited in that battle with killing British Lieutenant Colonel James Abercrombie, okay, along with several other enemy soldiers, but he was the big one. That's why I told you that strategy was his thing, literally. So getting into Colonel Ty, okay. Colonel Ty is interesting because his backstory from his time being a slave as Titus, I think, is one of the things that resonates the most for so many people. They say that he was the one that was a bit mild-mannered, and there were some things that were done that could set him off really, really easily when people would talk about him in history. That's how he was referred to, the person that's always mild-mannered, but he could easily be set off if you say the wrong thing. So, says he earned a reputation as the most formidable guerrilla leader in the Revolutionary War. During his years fighting for the British, patriots feared his raids, while their slaves welcomed his help in their liberation. Ty, originally known as Titus, okay, so they include that, during his years in slavery in New Jersey, escaped a particular brutal master in 1775, and that's when he was ticked off, just to let you guys know. So they don't really go into detail, but go and do some further research on what pissed him off when he was enslaved and what his response was. Man, when I tell you, he is one for the history books. So, let's go back. So the British saw more value in using the knowledge of the coveted New Jersey territory, which sat between British-occupied New York and the Patriot center of government in Philly. The Redcoats needed to take this middle land and believed Ty could help. The British were right. Ty excelled at raid warfare here. Okay. His familiarity with the area gave him an advantage in attacks on Patriots' land, and his daring skill for execution kept the Black Brigade soldiers largely unscathed as they plundered homes, took supply, freed slaves, and sometimes even assassinated Patriot slaveholders who were known for their cruelty. Okay, he knew a lot about that. He knew a lot about those people too. So the British recognized Ty's impact on their success, and out of respect for his contributions, bestowed him the honorific title of Colonel. I know some of you have no idea what a colonel is, but it's a big accomplishment. He remains an important symbol of fearless resistance, as so do his descendants, which some of them are still living now. So here is a photo. Oh, John the Baptist. Okay. So moving on. I knew it was Phyllis Wheatley, you guys. She was the slave, and so this is kind of what I want you guys to know about Phyllis Wheatley. She was the person who basically navigated the war with words. She was accredited for navigating this war with words, and she's one of the main symbols that debunks the idea that slave owners refuse to educate their slaves. And in fact, various slave owners in this territory, in this area back then, they were accredited with having the most knowledgeable individuals enslaved, because those people were responsible for educating their children, teaching their children literacy skills, to write, to read, all that good stuff. But Phyllis had a particular way that she approached narration, writing, poetry, all of it. So let's see what they have to say about her. Probably something about George Washington Carver. Yeah, George Washington's forever. Okay, so Phyllis Wheatley was a revolutionary intellectual who waged a war for freedom with her words. Captured as a child in West Africa, then taken to North America and enslaved, Wheatley had an unusual experience in bondage. Her owners educated her and supported her liberal pursuits. In 1773, at around age 20, Wheatley became the first African American and third woman to publish a book of poetry in the young nation. Shortly after, her owners freed her. Influential colonists read Wheatley's poems and lauded her talents. Her work, which reflected her close knowledge of ancient classics as well as biblical theology, carried strong messages against slavery and became a rallying cry for abolitionists. Remember, Christians, Negroes, Black as Cain, may be refined and join the angelic train. Just in case you guys don't know, that's her work, okay? She also advocated for independence, artfully expressing support for George Washington's Revolutionary War in her poems. To His Excellency, I remember she wrote that to him, and he was having issues, because I know a lot of people don't remember, but George Washington was the guy that stopped his formal education when he was 11 years old. So it's in here. And they had several conversations because she was kind of like the epitome of educational excellence for him. And she was known for educating so many other slaves, not only the children of her master or slave owners, but she educated a lot of people. Peter Salem, he's a colonial hero. Okay. Peter Salem is best known for his crucial contribution at the outset of the Revolution. Born into slavery in Massachusetts in the mid-18th century, Salem joined the Patriots in the earliest battles of the war, participating as a Minuteman at Lexington and Concord. His owners supported his decision and freed him so that he could remain enlisted. Salem earned his place in history for his role in one of the most important Revolutionary War fights in 1775, Battle at Bunker Hill. Although the British defeated the Continental Army in this encounter, it wasn't a total loss for the Patriots. Their killings of many redcoats encouraged him to keep up the fight. Many historians credit Salem with killing the key officer of the Crown, Major John Pitcairn, just as he was scaling the tops of the American redoubt and demanding that the Patriots surrender. Salem's role is believed to have been memorialized in John Trumbull's painting. Yeah. That's Marquise de Lafayette. Let me go to, let's see if they have the story about the end of the war. Absolutely love this picture. What do you guys see here? Like, what do you see when you see these images? I see pride, reflections of greatness. But exactly, the utmost dignity. It looked like he was hot, greasy. Michael Jackson. He does kind of favor Michael Jackson. You guys don't laugh at my producer. He's something else. But so, the thing is, here is what I've posted for those of you who are viewing this on YouTube. You do have the link so you can go through and check this out, because the thing is, this is a site that has amazing the amounts of credibility. When I talk about peer review and making sure that they are on top of things, they do a really good job. However, the other piece is this: if you're on Facebook, you don't have that link, so you want to click the link that leads you to my YouTube so you can find this video and view it there, because it's really important that you guys know your real history and that you get a good idea of why it is so important to honor those fallen Black lives during this war, right? And the Civil War to follow. You guys have to know why it's important that you celebrate America's independence, because America's independence was not just for a country that was not built for you. America's independence and the celebration thereof is celebrating a country that led to the freedom of slaves that would have been enslaved until the end of their days, had they been left to their own recognizance in Africa. The reality is, this war is the start of what led to the freedom and the respect of Black men. These are people who descended from a war and then built Black Wall Street. Know your history. Know that you come from greatness. Know that the world is not against you. Know that this alleged white man that's always been on your neck trying to hold you down according to whoever told you what, whenever they told you that, that's not true. You come from greatness. We are all ascended from greatness. Just because a person has a very difficult past doesn't mean they can't have a promising future. And if anything, in this particular story, you guys should learn that your future is yours to take. It can be what you want it to be. You can make it whatever you want to make it. But don't think that by saying that you are Black, you have to also say you are not American. They are both one and the same, people. You are descendants of greatness. Act like you know it. Okay, so that's all that I have. Good evening, Liz. How are you? How are you? How are you? How are you? That's all that I have, you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the new intro video, and I'm going to go ahead and let this new one take us out. But don't forget, before I go, if you are a first-time viewer, make sure that you have hit that subscribe button. If this content resonated with you, if you enjoyed today's history session, I'm happy. I'm going to go and finish watching my kids as they celebrate Independence Day of America, because it's a thing. It means something for them. I personally celebrate my birth all year. I mean, all month. So it's important for me to not engage and over engage in these celebrations. But if you are a Black person and you feel like, oh, I'm blackity black, and I don't celebrate that because Juneteenth is my celebration, I'm just going to be honest with you guys. Juneteenth, sorry, it's for those people who are descendants from slaves in Texas that had a really hard time, who needed that extra push. Texas. Not all of you. Just saying, know your history. And I think that a lot of you need to go and do some deep-seated exploration, maybe do some ancestry.com so you can figure out where you really come from, because there are a lot of people who are Southerners who, after the Civil War, your parents' might not have been their parents, because there was a lot of stuff going on between Blacks who were freed now and no longer in bondage and having babies with those wonderful Asians they sent over here to work on the railroad that was so destroyed in the southern states. So that might be where you come from. Just saying. And you could be Asian and Indian or Native American. So what I would say is get a little bit more intimate with your history, with who you are, where you come from, what it means to be in you and your experience. And don't be ashamed to walk in that light, whatever that light looks like. So that's all I got. Wish you guys well. Go out there, go forth, be great, and make good choices, and be a positive impact. Okay, not just any impact, but a positive impact on the people around you and the world around you. Remember, we're all connected. So that's all I got. Later days.
Who alive can't put me in a box. I redefine any definition you got. I am the tiger, I'm making steps to the top. The flames, I'll rip it up, you just gotta hand me the rock. Take a seat, you cannot stand it. All I know, the flow harder than a Scotch bunny. Don't try studying me, you cannot manage. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon.